the document in Photoshop and in InDesign. So this is an example of one of the posters from the student this morning. This is kind of where we're heading, so we want to be able to have different things on different layers, learn how to overlay things and how to select things. So let's just start from scratch. Make yourself a new document, so that's File, New. You want to make sure it's a print document because that's going to give you your 300 pixels per inch, and you want to make sure you're working in millimeters. So you're going to put in a particular measurement. So we're not using A3, we're doing slightly larger than A3, and I will put it up on the board. So we're doing A3 plus 6 centimetres, which is going to give you 3 millimetres extra space, which then pops into the bleed area in InDesign, which means you don't have to stretch up your illustration to fit to the bleed and therefore maybe lose a bit of it in the bleed area. So instead of that, you create the Photoshop file itself, 6 millimetres bigger, so that's 303. Yep, so 303 is the width, and instead of the height being 420, it's going to be 426. Make sure it says pixels inch, not pixels centimetre. If you do pixels centimetre, you'll end up with some enormous document. RGB colour is good, so just remember it's good to work in RGB colour, because what if you're putting this poster on websites, etc. There are digital versions of it. When you go to print it, and next week when we make the PDF of it, we'll convert it to CMYK. One of the things that's used to convert it to CMYK is this colour profile. So colour profiles, there's a lot of them. They're things you can get from the particular printer you're using, and they are really just a formula to do the best possible conversion from RGB numbers that represent particular colours to CMYK numbers. And so they're specific, if you like, a mathematical translation of a screen colour to a print colour, but in a particular way that's best for the particular place you're printing it. So if you click on that, you'll see there's a number of, well, there's a lot, and you can, a printer can send you the particular one they prefer you to use. If you're never told anything, this working RGB, that's what comes through as a colour profile for most cameras and scanning, and so it's an automatic one, and sometimes printers prefer that one, particularly digital printers. For normal CMYK printing, a lot of the time they'll be using a profile that uses this Adobe RGB 1998. So if you're working with Photoshop files, going to normal CMYK printing, and nobody tells you anything, you don't know what to do, then that's a safe bet. And it's about translating, how do we translate the screen colours to CMYK? It helps control that and give you a good outcome. The worst possible thing you can do is to say don't colour manage. Then you have no idea how the colours are going to translate from screen to RGB. So you can put it on RGB 1998 if you like, just a bit of practice. The other thing you might want to do is start with a transparent background. So it's really easy to see when you've chopped out, and you've made a selection, you're chopping out the background, you'll be able to see that it's actually gone. And 8-bit is fine. Okay, so we don't need a huge image. So just make sure it says pixels inch. That's your main issue. If it has pixels centimetre for any reason, you're in trouble. It's the wrong thing. Okay, so just always check in there because it's easy to get it wrong, and you might want to give it a name. Okay, and then create your document. So it's going to look like this, and then we'll switch just quickly to InDesign. And again, I'll go over this again next week. But the InDesign document is going to end up like this. So it's got 3 millimetres of bleed. So when you create your InDesign document, so you'll make a new document, and in InDesign, again, hit print, view the presets, and for this one you can just use the preset A3, And again, measure in millimetres so you know what you're doing. You can see that's the normal millimetres, and we've just added 6 extra all round, 3 all round in Photoshop. Okay, and you can use the margins fine. It just keeps the text within a safe area. And the big thing we want to do here is add bleed. So we would say 3 millimetres bleed, hit the little link. That means 3 millimetres bleed line all the way around, and you'll know where your Photoshop document should pop into. Slug, if you're wondering about what slug is, that's just like you can allow an extra bit of paper at the end of a document, and why a printer might ask for that is so that they're called grippers. So you imagine a sheet of paper is going through the press, has to be gripped, yeah, and it just gives a little bit of space for that. So a printer might tell you an amount of slug to leave. That's what that's for. We don't bother with it here because we're just printing from our little glorified photocopier printer, yeah, laser printer. All right, and so then you create that. One more thing on that, I would turn off the primary text frame. That's just going to annoy you. It puts a whole frame over the whole page. It's an automatic text frame. So we don't really want that for this poster. And sometimes when you're laying out things, if that's turned on, you'll get overlaying boxes of text boxes, and then things sort of disappear. It does weird things. So I prefer to have that one off. It is automatically ticked, so it's something you have to think about to go and turn off. So in this case, we do not want that interfering. We want to make our own little text boxes to float our text around in. So we want to have it off, and then you'll create that. So you're going to have a document that looks like that, and you want to use those margins. Think of them as a safe guide. You don't want text out in this area. It should go out of that. That's what the margin's for. There's your bleed. So your Photoshop document will be right out to that bleed because you've made it the right size. So that's good practice whenever you're setting something up. Okay, so having a look at our empty Photoshop document now. So to bring in the work, let's just place. We'll do place linked is okay for the moment. And I'm going to bring in another student's work as an example. So there's one of her drawings. At this point, I can just click on it, rotate it, and importantly, I can scale it up to that size. You want to be, particularly if you're planning to lay things on top of each other, you want to be as exact as possible about that. And when I'm happy with it, I'll hit the return key, and you'll see that it's got that link. So what that link means is that this is a smart object. So smart objects are a great idea if you're building a whole mock-up and perhaps you're putting in some vector work and you don't want to turn it into Photoshop pixels. You can just keep it there with the link and then package the Photoshop file at the end when you're finished to keep the links together. But we don't actually need that, but I'll just show you how it works. When you double click on any smart object, it basically opens up another version of it that you can work on and play with, and it just means that you've got access to it, and when you do anything in that sort of master version of it, it updates here. But we don't need to keep that link. Sometimes you do. So instead, what we're going to do is turn that smart object into a bunch of pixels that we can edit. At the moment, I can't paint on that. If I try to paint, I get a little, sign saying, no, you're not allowed to, forbidden. It won't let me use a lot of the tools. Some of them it will, but a lot of them it won't. So at this stage, you've got to go Layer, Rasterize, Smart Object. And you could do all layers if you've got a whole bunch of them. Okay, you can see the little link disappears. That's good, because now, if I want to paint, I can do anything I like. But one of the first things you want to do, I just want to adjust this image. Scans often white out the image a little bit and make the values all a little bit washed out. So one of the first places I always go is the levels. Now in this menu, when I do things, they're permanent. So that's a little bit different to making in the layer menu, adjustment layers. You'll see exactly the same things, but they're not permanent. They're things you can apply or not apply. In the case, I'm pretty confident about what I want to do here. I just want to really pick this image up a bit. So I'm going to go adjustment levels. It'll make a permanent change to it. So I'm just going to bring up, can you see there's not many pixels in that? There's not much data in the dark tonal area. There's a bit in the mid and there's a lot in the highlights. So that tells me it's washed out a bit. So if I just bring up those dark values till I'm happy with them, you can see, I don't know if you can see on screen, I'll do it a bit more exaggeratedly. So can you see the difference? It's really punching it up a little bit, right? So it's bringing back some dark values to that histogram. So use your own judgment, but you can see there's a big difference between the scan and then the adjusted one. Yeah, so I'm not going light and dark, I'm just actually pushing a bit more data into the dark areas. So it punches it up a bit. That's one of the first things I always do with a scanned image. And what that'll also do, it would allow me to find a better edge to the edge of this. At this point, we want to get rid of the white pixels and just have the image, because we want to put a different background behind it. So you need to play around, experiment with some of these tools. One of the easiest and most obvious ones is the object selection. If you have a good edge, you can just drag over the whole image and see what it does. Has it done a pretty good job? Now that's deleted that, I'd have to go select inverse. So if I have a selection of the image, I've got to inverse it to get the background, right? So that particular tool, that's what you've got to do. And then let's have a look. It's pretty good. There's a few bumpy bits it didn't get, but I could go in and I could adjust them. So it could be that works for you. It does depend on your image. Command D, Apple D, to deselect, or go to select, load, or deselect. So you can see deselect is sitting up there greyed out, Command D. So if you forget your command, just go up there, deselect. So maybe I don't find that was the best one. Maybe I want to use quick selection and go a bit more slowly. And that would let me just drag and get a bit of it and have a look section by section as to how it's going. So that might work for me. You might find you have to use a couple of different tools to get what you want. So you can see select, I want to deselect now to do something different. There's that shortcut on your keyboard. It's the little Apple key or command key sitting right next to your space bar, and then the letter D, that's your deselect. You may as well learn that, but if you forget it, there it is, Command D, deselect. So what other tools could I use? Let's have a look at them all. The Magic Wand tool is really good because it selects via a whole colour. So if I wanted to select all the blue, it's going to select just the blue in the whole image. Tolerance is at 30. If I want more of the blue, I could knock it up to, say, 70, that little tolerance setting there, and then try again and see what it does. So you can see it gets more of the pixels. If I did 100, I'd probably find when I click again with that Magic Wand tool, it's pretty good. So if I wanted to do something to just the blues in the image, so let's say I want to change the colour of the blue, I could go for just the blue and change the hue saturation on just the blue areas in the so that's always a possibility, that you can select a particular colour. So say OK to that, Command Z. But that's not what I'm after, so Command D, but that's an option if you just want to change a particular colour in the whole image. I'm still working on the whites, so let's try the Magic Wand tool there. See what's happened? There's too much of it. That's because my tolerance is too high. So Command D again. If I put the tolerance down to say 25, zoom up and have a look at this. Now you can see I'm getting a much more detailed selection. So if I want to be really precise, I might even go down a bit more and just say 20. That's not too bad. And you can shift select, you can hold down the shift key with any of these tools to add another area. So at this point, if I want to add in to the same selection, if I hold down the shift key over here, it's going to add that white in as well. Okay, so shift and grab a tool adds to that selection. Shift and option key will take something out of a selection. So those are good things to remember. So I'll Command D again. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's not a bad selection. If I really want to get exact, I could go in and painstakingly take out all of those bits. I could. I'll show you a couple more ways you could do things. One of the ways that sort of makes life easier for designers is called quick mask mode. And it's this little camera down here. And don't worry guys, I am recording this as I'm speaking because I'm showing you a lot of different tools. So don't panic, you're not expected to remember it all. But it's good to know what's there. And if you forget, you can always Google a tutorial on quick mask mode. But it is handy because if you double click on it, you can say, okay, when I paint, I'm going to be painting a selection or a mask. I usually paint a selection. So I'll just cancel that. To access it, you double click to set the tool to selection. Double click. That allows you to choose masked or selection. Makes more sense to me that when I use a paintbrush tool in a minute, I'll be painting a selection. Okay, so it's usually set on mask, but I switch it for my own sanity. I can't seem to paint the negative. It doesn't work for my brain, okay? So that's what I do. So when you've done that, you'll find that you can then use a brush, and let's just zoom that down a bit. And get used to using your shortcuts on the keyboard to expand and contract your brush size, especially when you're trying to do selections. The two keys I'm talking about are the bracket keys on your keyboard. So they've got little square brackets and then curly brackets above, those two keys. They will enlarge and reduce your brush size as you're working. Again, very handy to do that, makes doing things a lot faster. So now when I paint, that is not red paint. I'm painting a selection. And then I just click once to come out of quick mask mode, and that's what I painted. So it does allow for some much better, Command D again, some much better edge work, much more precise if you're wanting to fix something up, and you can do it very quickly with quick mask mode. So we'll look at that again, but just to reiterate, double click on it to tell it how to behave. Yeah, so I'm saying what I paint is going to be selected, and then just go and get the paintbrush tool, and you could use any of these tools, right? Not the colour replacement, but any brush or pencil, I mean. So you could get very precise with it. You could draw a selection really, really closely. So then you would tend to zoom up on the area you wanted to select. So say I didn't have a good job selecting out the green from this blue. You know, say I managed to get a decent selection with the magic wand tool, but then it needs adjustment. So I'll show you what I mean. So magic wand tool. Oh, come out of quick mask mode, hang on. So I'm back out. So you click in and out of quick mask mode, just one click. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to shift select to select more of the blue. My tolerance is down, so I'm not getting a great selection. so I'd have to increase the tolerance. Now I switch to quick mask mode, and I can see what I've got selected with any of the tools. Quick mask mode will show you what you did, what did you select. And that way, in quick mask mode, you can go, okay, I really needed a bit more of that, so I'm painting the selection in. So if I wanted to control, especially say a tricky bit around the edge of the moon, I could zoom right up on that and maybe switch from a soft brush to a hard brush because I want a better edge, and get my brush really a bit smaller, and you can see it's a hard edge. Okay, let me do a little bit around here. So see, I can literally draw, and if you're doing this on a tablet, you can imagine how much more accurate you could be. So it's a little bit tricky around the moon, getting that. Now I made a mistake, I've got that there, so that's a big mistake. What am I going to do about that? I'm going to get the eraser tool, and I can actually just erase that selection out of it. So that's a hard brush, will give me a very crisp edge, if that's what I want. Remember, I'm painting and removing a selection till I get what I want. So back to the brush tool if I want to add to the selection. So I'm adding to my selection. Okay, that's all my selection. I'm trying to do a better job of my edges than the tool. And I don't know where to finish it here, so I can decide, okay, I want a bit more of an edge there. So you can use any of the tools at your disposal to make a selection and then switch to quick mask mode to fix it if it doesn't get exactly what you want. It's very versatile. So painting with a brush adds to it. Switching to the eraser tool while in quick mask mode will take things out of it. Okay, now if I want to see what my selection is, I just click once, not twice, once on the little radio button, and there's my selection. Okay, and if I deleted that, you can see what I've got. It's still very messy. Okay, but most of all it would be, I can see a bit there. If I look here at that, at the edge there, it's a bit rubbish, isn't it? How am I going to fix that? Well, I could go to quick mask mode, click once, then I know when I paint, I'm painting a selection. I can zoom right up on it, use the spacebar key to get that hand, that's what I'm doing there, spacebar key, and then I can move around while I'm really zoomed up. And then I can go and I can go, okay, I want a better little selection. I'm going to delete this. And again, if you are working with a tablet, you'll find, you know, you'd be drawing this, so you get a very accurate edge if that's what you want. So instead of paint, you're painting selection. Click once to come out, and then hit delete, and there it goes. So it's not bad, is it? I'm really refining that selection. Command D to deselect, see what I've got. And just, you know, if you can do a lot of it with those basic tools, why wouldn't you? But then use quick mask mode to refine things. Does that make sense? Now, one more thing, I hope it does. If it doesn't, you'll have to replay this. One more thing we're going to look at is I've done all this work. I'm getting close to what I want. To save time, what I could also do is modify the selection. Now, it looks like I've quit out of my selection, doesn't it? How do I reload the selection? I hover my little cursor over the layer. That's called a layer thumbnail. Hover over it with your mouse and hold down the command key that's next to the spacebar key. You will see it changes. It's got a little pointy finger with a little square on it. And just click once and it reloads the selection. That is just a shortcut for this. Select, load selection. And you have to tell it, what am I reloading? And so there, it's found it because I'm on that layer. Okay, so a quick way to do it is just hold down the command key, the one next to the space bar, and click once with the mouse while you're still holding down the command key. Does that make sense? Sort of. You might have to have a go before you remember it. Okay, and that reloads it as a selection. Why am I doing that? Because I reckon I could clean this edge up if I'm not really that attached to this stuff. What I could do is under the select menu, modify, and I could smooth that edge. So this is something you can experiment with. You could smooth the edge. I could expand the edge, so move it outwards, or I could contract it. So you could try contracting it inwards to kind of get rid of some of the muck on the edge. So I'm going to move it inwards. I might do like 5 pixels just so you can see it moving in. So you can see it's jumped in, it's quite subtle. And then what do I want to remove? I want to remove the stuff that's outside of that. So I'm going to select inverse and just hit delete, and it's just kind of cleaned it up a bit. So sometimes the modify command is really helpful. The other reason you want to learn about modify, so that's all under the select menu, is that you might want to feather. When you're cutting and pasting, this goes to photo editing, when you're cutting and pasting a photo from one picture to another, you get this harsh pixelated edge. So if you zoom up on this, it's a bit nasty, isn't it? So when you cut and paste that, that's the kind of edge you'll get. You can really see a sort of a pixely edge to it. It's a bit ugly. So to solve that problem, what we usually do is do a little feather on it. That's under the select menu, modify, feather. So this is a common thing. If you've ever seen an image vignetted with a very soft edge, that's all it is, it's a feather. So you say feather, and it's usually, for something like this, quite a subtle effect. Maybe I'll do 5 or something. And you won't really see what it's done until you put something behind it. So I'll fill that background layer with a colour. So let's just fill it with a dark, mysterious purpley blue. So a bit of a midnight blue we're going to put in there. And I'm just paint bucketing the solid colour. The paint bucket hides under the gradient tool, if you're only seeing the gradient tool. If you can't find a tool, you go to those 3 dots and you'll find hidden tools, and you can just drag them into the toolbar. But usually the paint bucket is hanging around. I'll deselect at the moment because I don't want to fill the selection. All I've done is put a solid colour behind that. So see that sort of harsh edge? Let's try feathering it quite a bit. Reloading the selection, feathering it. Might move it inwards a bit again, so I might contract it in a bit. And then I might just say, okay, select feather. Let's do it a bit more extreme. So the edge it's creating is a lot softer. So if I take that little beastie now, load him up, I'm just going to copy it. And I'm going to put it in there. No, it didn't really show it terribly well. So I probably need to do a bit more. But if you want a soft edge, try feathering it. I probably have to do it more exaggeratedly. And it's better to do it, it's actually probably better to do it as you're chopping. So I've already chopped it. So where you would normally do that is before you chop it out of the background. So maybe I'll place the donkey in again. So let me just place the donkey in again. Might get a different one in. Oh no, it's the same one. Just layer rasterize again. So at that point, if I wanted to just go and get the white, maybe use the magic wand tool, do my best job to get the white, delete it, and before I delete it though, at this point, so you've got a selection but you haven't chopped it, at this point if you select modify and feather, let me just do it a bit more extreme so you can kind of see it, and then delete it. If I zoom up on that donkey now, can you see what a soft edge it's got compared to the other one? See the softness? Yeah, so that's what feathering does. And you can see what I was trying to do on the other one was I was trying to contract the selection before I do the feather, because otherwise we're getting a bit of the white backgrounds. But if you contract it first, then feather, it works really well. So just want to notice the difference. Like I did an extreme feather, like 20 is a lot. It's usually a subtle thing, maybe 5 pixels, something like that. And then you should get less of the glow effect. But it's much better than having that harsh edge. You can see the difference, can't you? So learning to modify our selection before we chop it out is just another thing in your armoury. So I'm pretty happy with the donkey. I'll hide those other layers. In fact, we don't really need those, so let's just get rid of them to keep things simple. Now the next thing I want to do is muck around with what's called layer modes. So to do that, I'm just going to bring in another version of the donkey, and some of you might want to play around with more versions because you've done different versions, a lot of you. Oh, not that one. I'll bring in the pastel one. Where's the pastel one? Is that the pastel one? I'm not sure which one it is. Yes, that's the one. So there's a pastel version of it, and I'm going to have fun overlaying these. So again, the sizing, if you've traced it to the exact size, you might get pretty close to them overlaying perfectly. Don't stress if it doesn't. And again, we want to go layer, rasterize, smart object. Now, I can just take the opacity down a bit of the top layer, just while I'm trying to align them. You can see it doesn't quite match, so I might have to bring the donkey down a bit there. This is a little bit of a mismatch. At any point, you can go to the Edit menu, Transform, Scale. So if you lose the handles, or you want to rotate, go to the Transform menu. So I could just fiddle around a bit with the size of the other donkey, because we know it's traced off the same one, so it's just a matter of fiddling around with it a little bit to get them to align, if that even matters to you. And then when I'm happy with it, yeah. Now this time I'm not going to necessarily chop the background out of that layer. I'm just going to muck around with these layer modes. So at the moment, the top layer is sitting on top of this one. And whatever I do, it's on normal. Overlay mode gives something to play with. So what it's doing is it's overlaying the pastel one on top of the watercolour. So they're all going to look slightly different. I'll put the fill back up to 100% so you can see what's happening a bit better. So parts of the one below are mixing in with this. So they all do something different. There might be one of these overlay modes that you really like. You think it's combining the best. Now I like that one because it's brought in detail into the trees, whereas the trees are actually black. So I'm kind of like, okay, I like that. That's hard light. I'll remember that one. Vivid light, no. Linear light's not bad, bringing the trees in as well. I don't mind that. So hard light, linear light, maybe linear light's better. Pin light, just depends what effect you want. Subtract will change the colours. Saturation, kind of desaturate. Some luminosity, that's not bad either. So let's say I decide on linear light because it's bringing the trees through. At any point you can play around with these and make them a permanent change once we flatten the document. So at the moment it's a temporary thing, we can take it off, we can flick it on and off. But at the moment I'm still experimenting. So, you know, do I want to remove the background as well? There might be other things I want to do to the top layer. So that's one thing you can do, that's layer mode. So that's up here, we're on normal mode here. Okay, I could do it the other way around. I could pop my watercolours now on top of the pastel one. Same kind of thing. I could use overlay mode to combine the watercolour over the top of the pastel. Again, not bad, not bad.
When you bring the other one back down, does it automatically go back to normal? Or does it...
Yeah. So look at that one divide. Now that's doing something really funky. I really like that.
Yeah.
So if you get to a point where you think, I don't know if I want to use it, but I'd really like to keep that, you can do a thing called a snapshot, but it's temporary. It doesn't keep it. It only keeps it for the session you're open. And that's done in the history palette. So rather than that, if you get to a point where you like one of your experiments, but you're not sure, and you want to keep experimenting, just save it and call it something. Like I'll call it donkey experiment 1. Yeah? So I can go back to that and play around with it some more. And at this point I might decide, you know, this is working really well, but I think I need to get rid of the blue pixels. So again, I might be going back to one of these tools and selecting that background. Oh, I'm in quick mask mode. Make sure you're not in quick mask mode. Yeah, so with quick mask mode also you have to have the black forward. I forgot to say that. So anyway, we could go back and we could get rid of bits of this that we don't want and just reveal it if we're happy with that and just keep working with it. So that's a possibility, combining layers. So that's the main thing at the moment I want you to play with. One more thing I'm going to throw in to give you some ideas is using a mask. So instead of sort of combining, now remember I've saved this, so I like that, so I'm just going to hang on to it. So it's all saved. So I'm back to this. So say I want to keep this one and just bring in little bits of the watercolour into it. I've got the watercolour aligned where I want it underneath. I can do it, again, it's a temporary thing, so it's a great way to experiment. It's not permanent till you apply it. You go down, you see the little radio button? That's going to put a mask on. So you click that little radio button, it's applying what's called a layer mask. No, I only want one. And on that mask, now I need to have black forward down here. Black just means 100% chopping through the top layer. And when I paint, I'm not actually painting on the pixels, I'm going to be painting on the mask. So I'll just make my brush a bit bigger so you can see what's happening. Now that's actually, see what's happening? It's painting through to the layer below. Now that's not really where I'm worried about. I actually want to keep this, but just bring the watercolour through. So I want a soft brush for this, so definitely don't want a hard brush to do this. Soft brush. And then I can just paint a little bit of the bottom layer through, but it's not permanent until I say so. Now that's at 100% opacity. If I want to be more subtle, I can take the opacity of the brush itself down and then just work gradually to bring a little bit in. The other thing I can do, can you notice how it's kind of, yeah, I can just keep going like that. So notice how it's kind of getting a bit of the outside. You know, so I'm getting bits of this painted through. If I wanted to control the area it's working in, that's when I could load the donkey selection. Oh, it's not accurate. No, I can't do that. If they were perfectly aligned, I could do it, but I can't. I'd have to make a new selection.
But can you flip?
So don't worry about that. But you could just...
flip to white to erase?
Sorry?
You know how you're painting in black and that makes a mask.
That makes the mask. It's not permanent.
But if you flip it to white, can you go back?
Oh yes, you can erase. Yes, you can do the other way, yeah. Yeah, that's correct. But the advantage of doing this is that it's a bit like using a watercolour. So I can just do it really softly, and the more I go over it, the more detail it's going to bring through. So if I do it really a lot, I'm going to get back to 100% coming through. But I can really do it softly and in a gradation. The other thing you can do on a layer mask is, you can actually use a gradient mask. So you can actually draw a gradient from, but again, it's not permanent. So a gradient mask is not, it's there on this, but it's not really putting a gradient colour. It's just bringing through parts of the one underneath, and you can fiddle with what kind of gradients you want to use up here. So you can see there's a few different ones. So I could use a centre one. I could do all sorts of fun things. So that, but it's not permanent. So I think it's kind of like a nice technique if you just want to bring in, sometimes people use it when they want to bring in a photographic part of an image underneath, say an eye. You have a drawn eye and you want to bring a bit of the photographic eye through. You'd use this masking technique to figure it out, what you want it to look like. So I could just bring in the bits that I want, and maybe a little bit more detail and so on. So it's not permanent, right? So at any point I can go layer, look for layer mask, and I can delete it and start again. Didn't like it, didn't work. I can either erase it, start again. If I want to make it permanent, that's when you apply it, and now it's actually clipped the image. So now it's done something to the image. Yeah, then the image is now permanently affected. I've basically chopped a hole in it. See that? Yeah? So it's made it permanent. But you don't have to. You can keep it there forever, really, just as a mask. So the things you're learning in this lesson are selection tools, overlay modes, and layer masks. Those are the three things we're trying to add in to your Photoshop knowledge because they're so useful for so many of your projects that you do. Okay, so spend some time. Step one, do a good selection, play around with the selection tools. I am going to just quickly, before I let you go, add in one more selection tool for those of you that like to do things a little bit more sophisticated. You have a thing called Select Colour Range. That is in the select. So unlike here, where all the selection tools are, mostly sitting here in your tools, this is actually in the selection panel, and it's called Colour Range. So it can be quite useful. Again, you can combine it with Quick Mask Mode. So Colour Range, it's another thing you can use. It has an eyedropper tool. So you can select a particular colour and use the fuzziness slider to select more of it. So I'm trying to get to a silhouette of that donkey. I'm not quite getting there, but I'm getting pretty close. So I want a good edge to it, so how about I go there? And I can use the plus eyedropper to add more bits into it or minus bits into it. So if I didn't want something in there, I could actually just keep one colour selected. So I'll probably have to play with the fuzziness. It's telling me play with the fuzziness. Okay, I'll do it a bit more extreme so you can kind of see what happens. Say okay. So again, it's got things I don't want selected. So Quick Mask Mode is your friend. Double click, selected area. The red is selected, there's too much selected. So that didn't work terribly well for me. Let's try it just on, say, I'll turn off the background. Let's say I just want to select the blue. I can go select colour range, and I'm saying I just want to select blue, and I can add a few bits more to it. So I'm getting pretty good Pretty good. Fuzziness slider will allow you to select more or less of that particular thing. Say OK. Oh, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's check it out in quick mask mode, and I can zoom up and I can just fix it a little bit. So this is a good example where quick mask mode is really your friend, because colour range is a very fast way of getting one colour selected, but then I can use quick mask mode to just improve my selection. So I'm just painting in the bits that didn't get selected. My brush is too opaque, put it up at 100% so you can see what I'm doing. So see how I'm filling in the bits that missed? And I can do that pretty quickly and just improve my selection. Do I want a soft edge or a hard edge? So that's the only thing you might have to change if you want a hard edge. Fiddle with the edge, you know, so you can see that's now a hard edge. So it's up to you, but you can see probably around the edges there, I'd be better off to zoom right up, use the spacebar key to move around and get my brush size a little smaller and just go around and fill in the bits that didn't quite get selected until I'm happy with it. So this is select colour range, then hopping into quick mask mode to just improve it. So I'll pretend I've done the whole thing and I'm happy with it. Come out, click once to come out of quick mask mode. I can see my selection. Okay, it's not perfect, but when I've made it perfect, then I could do anything with it. So be on the layer, the pixels are on this layer, I was on that layer. So now if I go in image adjust, let's just say I just want to change the donkeys instead of blue, just that part I want to change to a different colour, or it might be that I want to saturate it further, the colour I do have, or do both, you know. So you can really sort of, you know, have a bit of fun. The main thing is that you learn there are so many ways to make selections. Make sure you understand what these basic tools do, 1, 2, 3, main ones being this and this, yeah, and with the sub tools. Lasso is actually quite helpful. Sometimes you just want to do a little bit of an object, you know, maybe you want to move something. So, you know, if you just want to select a part of an image, you can just circle around it, go to your move tool, and then just move it. So super fast. There might be something you want to just move. Maybe it's the moon or something you just want to move. Yes, so lasso tool is still quite a useful tool. Polygon, lasso and magnetic, they're a bit of a nightmare. If you don't join them up, you go a bit crazy with it. But basically they let you trace around the edge of an object. If you want straight lines, sorry, can you ask at the end? I'm still recording. You can use the pen tool to make a path. Yes, you can. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to stop recording and just make sure that you've got this under your belt. It's a good question, like I won't ignore it, but you have what you have in Illustrator. You can use a pen tool to draw around an object to get a very good edge. Again, you've got to make sure you join up on it, and then there's a couple more steps. It's now a path and you have to make it into a selection. So there's a couple more steps. I might just make a separate video of it, to be honest. But yes, there is a possibility. So yeah, let's just stop it there and I'll do a separate video on using the path tool to make a selection. Because I feel like I've thrown so much at you at the moment that I'm probably overwhelmed you already. Okay, I'm going to